At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes. At the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today and let us surprise you.
You're listening to Make Some Noise Podcast, episode number 715.
Welcome to Make Some Noise Podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you are here. And I want to say right from the beginning, for the record, I love my life. I have no plans to take my own life. I'm not thinking about taking my own life. If something bad happens to me, it was not on my own account. I'm going to tell you the reason that I needed to say that in just a minute. But I want to start on a higher note. I am starting a Substack. If you read my emails, then you might have seen that I have plans to start one. I have started one, and I am sort of gathering up ideas and starting to write again. And obviously I've written recently. I have a book that just came out. And the thing is that I haven't written in a really long time on the regular for all of you. And I've noticed that it's starting to catch up with me. What I mean by that is, for me, the written word, as I say sometimes to people, is my first language. In other words, it feels like home to me. It's how I make sense of things. And what I realized very recently is that, or rather what I remembered recently is that, because this is how I make sense of these things in my own life, in my own mind through writing, is that that's how I help you, my community. And sometimes it isn't always just the written word. It's me just turning on the mic like I am today and just yapping. And I think that what has pushed me towards getting back into writing again, which is also making me reevaluate my entire schedule, it's making me reevaluate all of my priorities, is that I know that when I do write, I write from my heart. And what that does, and this is the thing I've been remembering, is that it helps me to connect with you. The feedback that I have received on some of my solo podcast episodes too, but on my writing more specifically, is that sometimes I have the ability to show people what is happening in their own hearts, the way that I explain things, the way that I word things. And that is my biggest hope for all of this work, which is a great segue for me to tell you the title of my Substack. I've been thinking about it for many weeks, probably months at this point. And at least temporarily, at least for now, this could change as I dive more into what my content is going to be about and what you can count on me for. The title of it currently is How Very Human of You. It's something that I found myself saying a decent amount regularly to clients, whether they are longtime clients or I recently had I'm an integration coach with Rhythmia, and so people can book sessions with me. And so these are people that I have never had a consult call with. They purchase a single session with me and we get on Zoom and coach. And earlier this week, I was coaching a wonderful woman, and it came out of my mouth, how very human of you. And we were talking about one of the 4 holy emotions. And it dawned on me in that moment And I was telling Dr. Fox about it, and he said, yeah, you say that to me from time to time as well. And I usually say it to people in a moment where they are telling me something that is vulnerable or difficult for them to say and feel and experience. And in that moment, I realize that it's very vulnerable for them. And I want to remind them that what they are experiencing, what they are feeling and saying is very human. And I've also realized something even bigger than that is I think for years now, I've been rolling around in my head and trying to answer the question for myself, what am I in the business of? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a personal growth journey for me. It is that, but it's also a professional journey. I have chosen this as my vocation, as my career, as a way to make a living. And so I've asked myself that question, what am I in the business of? And partially because life coaching in general, personal growth in general is tricky to market. I've talked about this on the podcast probably years ago at this point. And it's tricky because when you are selling and marketing a service, you have to tell, in order to sell it, you have to tell people the outcome. What is the solution that I'm providing people? What is the problem I help people solve? And when you're in personal growth, that's tricky, right? Because, oh my gosh, someone's personal growth is incredibly vast. It spans so many topics, so many eras of their life. It's just kind of giant. And trying to explain to people what I do and how I help them has been a challenge for me since the inception of my business, which was in 2010. And I was coaching for 3 years prior to that. It's always been complicated and hard for me. And, we've hired marketing people to help, and they always tell us the same thing about, you need to niche down. And I tried that and always really, really disliked it and felt like it was so limiting to not just my scope of what I do, but also limiting to my clients, because then I feel like I'm pushing out people who I may be able to help just because I'm not speaking to this specific thing that I do. It's kind of maddening, honestly. If I'm going to be really honest, it's maddening. I tell you all that because it's been maddening, perhaps because it's so linked to capitalism. And I'll talk more about that later, like realizing now the kind of quote unquote problem I've had with, I always sort of joke and say, I'm great at what I do, coaching, but I'm terrible at marketing. And I see other people in my industry, the people who do basically what I do, but they have hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers or over 1 million. I can name names, but I won't. And I've always felt that those people are probably not great at what they do. And I hesitate to even say that out loud. And I'll say this. Most of those people are good at what I call surface level personal growth. And they're also really, really great at marketing. Sometimes these people turn out to be whole ass grifters. And sometimes they don't, or at least not yet. And so I say all that to kind of just paint a picture of the entire journey of my career. I started out blogging in 2008, and and then 2010 when I launched yourkickasslife.com, it was a blog for a few years, and then I started a podcast in 2013, and I've been here ever since. But right now I'm taking the very long way to tell you that what I've realized recently is that I'm in the business of people's humanity. I am in the business of people's humanity, and hence the name of my Substack, How Very Human of You. And the thing that has been lost on me the whole time is that I have been interested in people's humanity and drawn towards it since forever, since I was a child. And as you know, I've been working with plant medicine over the past few years now. And one of the things that I found that plant medicine has helped me do, which is very, very common for other people that also use plant medicine as therapy, is that it allows you to, during integration, it allows you to make easier connections. I've talked about this on the show before. Make connections very quickly. And one of the connections I've been making lately is, I'll be standing stirring pasta at my stove and I'll suddenly remember experiences that I had as a child that pointed me towards being very, very interested in people's humanity as a young child. And at the time, not being able to, I didn't have language for it. I didn't understand it. It frightened me because a lot of what I was magnetized towards and pulled towards were emotions, were feelings. And as a Gen Xer, as someone who grew up in a culture and beyond, not with that not being fostered at all. In fact, it was shielded. And basically the message that I received implicitly is that feelings are invalid, they don't matter, we should avoid them, et cetera, et cetera. Probably all of the same messaging that you got as well growing up. P.S. Trust me, I'm going to bring this back to you. But one thing I remembered as I'm, making all these connections is in 2019, I was in a mastermind and Susan Hyatt was running it. She's been on the show several times and she gifted us, all of us that were in the mastermind, these really beautiful bracelets. And they were kind of like the bracelets that you see that have beads on them. And the clasp of it contained almost like a holder for a teeny tiny little scroll, not kind of like that's what it was. And then that's where the bracelet clasped and it was hollow and it came with a little tiny piece of paper that was not more than like a square inch in size. And there was little instructions on it and it said, make a wish and write something on the paper and roll it up and put it in the little thing and clasp your bracelet and wear it. And what I wrote on it was kind of a prayer that I've been asking for since 2019, when I first wrote that down. And I said something to the extent of, show me my gifts, my natural gifts, strengths, and talents so that I can use them for good. So ever since then, ever since 2019, that has been the prayer, the intention, the ask, the request that I have been putting into the universe. And show me my inherent strengths, talents, and gifts so I can use them for good. And boy, did the universe deliver. Here's what it delivered first was me falling apart completely. There's so much, you guys, there's so much that I haven't told you about the last few years. Really, summer of 2023 until summer 2024 was the absolute worst. To say that it brought me to my knees is a total understatement. That summer I was 48 and I truly believe, and this is actually what got me really interested in astrology. When I found out about the planet Chiron, which I've mentioned here before, Chiron is the wounded healer planet. And we all have these planets that come back to the position they were in the moment and place we were born. Saturn returns when we're around 27 to 30. There's several of them throughout our life, but Chiron is the wounded healer. And when Chiron comes for us, anywhere between the ages of about 48 to 52, I believe it is, right during perimenopause, for the womb holders, it can really shake things up, and it can be an opportunity. It will show you old wounding that you have an opportunity to heal. And, you don't have to take it. You don't have to take the healing, but I do think that planetary position will create situations and experiences in your life that are opportunities and invitations. And that certainly happened to me. And lo and behold, my Chiron is in Aries. I know nobody's surprised that really knows me. I also have heavy Gemini placements. Sorry, not sorry. I know it's a lot. But regardless, my Chiron in Aries meant that it's bold, it's fiery, it can be aggressive, and my God, it was. I managed to burn bridges that I look back on and I'm like, what was I thinking? I wasn't thinking. I burned it all down. I burned it all down. And some of it wasn't directly mine, but I do think it was indirectly happening. And the things that the bridges that I burned, I have gone back and made amends where I needed to. And so I feel good about all of those things, but damn, the ashes still remain and the smoldering still remains. And there's so much more I could tell you about how that wish has manifested for me, but for sake of time, I won't get into it right now. But what this has to do with you is I have experienced an answered prayer. When I wrote that down and put it in the bracelet and wore it, and then I continued to journal about it. I continued to say prayers of gratitude about that specifically, thanking my guides, angels, and ancestors for helping me see and live my inherent talents and gifts and strengths. So my question becomes for you, how can you do this in your life? How can you make a commitment to making intentions that matter to you specifically? You can call it a prayer. I often say a prayer is a spell. It can be a spell. It can be an ask, a request, even a note of gratitude. But how can you sit down, get quiet, take some time to narrow it down and get specific about this particular intention, this commitment that you're making in your life? What do you want to know more of? What do you want to feel more of? You can certainly use mine, but the invitation there would be use it as practice and keep looking for your own words where you can feel the truth of it in your body. And I know that might be kind of tricky for some of you to understand who aren't quite there yet. But even if you just get that inkling of, yes, this feels right for me. And if it gives you goosebumps or is a rush of of something good, that's great too. But we all have to start somewhere. Okay. And because this podcast is not paying her own bills, I need to take a quick ad break. And when we come back, I am going to talk to you a little bit about current events. We'll be right back. This show is sponsored by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife and feeling dismissed, unheard, or just completely fed up with the old healthcare system? You're not imagining it, and you're definitely not alone. For far too long, women's midlife health concerns have been brushed off, minimized, or met with some version of, this is just part of getting older, deal with it. And honestly, that kind of dismissal is exhausting. It can make you feel invisible or ashamed, or even like your body is suddenly a problem that no one wants to take seriously. Here's a wild stat. Even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause are left entirely untreated. But here's the good news. Things are changing. Enter MIDI. MIDI is a women's telehealth clinic founded and backed by world-class leaders in women's health, and they're doing things differently. They're the only women's telehealth brand covered by major insurance, making expert care accessible and affordable. You get one-on-one, face-to-face visits with clinicians who actually listen, plus personalized care from hormone support to weight management, lifestyle coaching, and preventative health. This isn't cookie-cutter care. This is care built around you. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today and book your personalized insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.
This podcast is supported by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife, feeling dismissed, unheard, or just plain tired of the old healthcare system? You're not alone. In fact, even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause issues are left entirely untreated. But it's time for a change. It's time for MIDI. MIDI's not just a healthcare provider. It's a women's telehealth clinic founded and supported by world-class leaders in women's health. Their clinicians provide one-on-one, face-to-face consultations where they truly listen to your unique needs. They offer a full range of holistic, data-driven solutions that isn't one-size-fits-all care. This is care uniquely tailored for you. At MIDI, you will find that their mission is clear: to help all women thrive in midlife, giving them access to the healthcare they deserve. Because they believe midlife isn't the middle at all. It is the beginning of your second act. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized, insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.
Okay, we're back. And I'm going to spend the second part of this podcast talking about a couple of the holy emotions, and as well as something that's been just sort of circling in my mind over the last couple of days. Last April, I think it was, I did the 10-part series when I turned 50. It was called Coming Home to Yourself series. And in one of those episodes, we'll link to it in the show notes, it was about what I call the 4 holy emotions. I actually considered calling my Substack this, but I call the 4 holy emotions shame, terror, grief, and rage. And I won't get into that too much. You can listen to the podcast episode, but I think for a lot of women right now, as we are so horrified, seeing, reading, hearing, understanding what has been happening globally, not just here in the United States, globally, as the largest child sex trafficking ring is exposed, and the people that have been involved in it are exposed, and the horrific things that we're learning about that have been happening that go far beyond anything I personally can fathom. I think a lot of us are experiencing rage and grief. And I was thinking the other day, yesterday or the day before yesterday, this is a special kind of grief. It's a unique kind of grief. And it's the kind of grief that I think very few of us, if anyone, has ever experienced, combined with rage. This isn't just anger or frustration that we're experiencing. Yes, we're experiencing that too, but this is rage. And women have been socialized to not feel it, even though we experience it as humans. And the amount of covert spiritual bypassing that I'm seeing on social media from people that I respect in this industry, few of those people have been on this podcast. That is a new experience for me. I'll talk about that in another podcast episode. But anytime we're experiencing rage, we're also experiencing grief. And so I think that, like, how I see it is, and this goes back to what I was talking about before the break, and making all these connections about myself since I was a child, and what I'm realizing, that because I made the wish, show me what my natural talents, gifts, and strengths are. I have been able to sense, understand, and feel the emotions of others before I even knew what they were myself. And I think that that's what made me such a sensitive child. This is gonna make me cry. Sorry, hold on. Okay, I'm coming back anyway. There's a song, of course, from Florence and the Machine, and I'm not allowed to read the lyrics here on the show, but the song is called Restraint. It is 47 seconds long. That's it. There are 2 lines of lyrics. I will link it in the show notes. The song will go to Spotify. I'll see if I can do Apple Music too, because I know a lot of you get your music there. And if you know me, you know that Florence Welch has been pivotal for me in helping me understand so many things about life and about being human. And she does it with poetry and music. And that particular song is so important to me because although it's only 47 seconds, it packs a punch in those two lines. And at the very end of the song, if you listen to all 47 seconds, especially if you can listen to it with headphones on or in a great system in your car, she sounds like she's choking at the end. And it's incredibly haunting, as is most of her music. That's why I love it. And I think it is so impactful to me because it sums up how I have felt my entire life and in most of my romantic relationships, including some members of my family. And when we're taught, socialized, conditioned to restrain ourselves, we are also taught, conditioned, and socialized to not express particular feelings that other people, that that an entire culture deem as a threat to a system of power. What I am realizing now is that one of the ways that patriarchy has stayed as strong as it has, one of their ways that they hold people down, hold women down specifically, is teaching us to not feel our feelings, to question them, to ignore them, to stuff them down. And this is something that men are trained to do as well. And that's another conversation for another time. And that should not be led by me because I don't know what it's like to experience life as a man. And I can only speak for myself specifically and, hopefully for many women. But we are taught that if we shut down our emotions, if we do not feel them, then we will be safer, right? Many of us come from families that teach us this. And many times when we're taught this, the people that are either modeling this or telling us this or showing us this are doing so from a place of good. They're trying to keep us safe. They're telling us, these are the rules. This is how we do things around here. We're shown. And by around here, it's the systems that have been created long before we were born. All right, back to the holy emotions of rage and grief. I want to speak briefly about two more things before I wrap up. One of them is the reason that I made that disclaimer in the very beginning of the podcast episode. And then the other one is about Pam Bondi. All right, let's start with the harassment that I've been getting online recently. I'm not, new to harassment, especially harassment from men, especially, in the online space. As I mentioned, I've been writing online since 2008 and almost immediately received pushback. And then the harassment started probably a couple of years later. I can't remember exactly when, but I got, my first anonymous harasser. And I've lived with it ever since and learned how to deal with it. And it's, I think at least for me, it never stops being startling. I've gotten better about emotional regulation when it happens, but right now we are living in a different era in terms of emotionally for women specifically. And so the harassment feels a little bit different. It feels more potent. The energy behind it feels darker. And what's always interesting to me is when I get harassment from women. It's just so fascinating. And I maybe it's a defense mechanism of mine, a protective measure where I really want to understand the psychology behind it, which brings me to Pam Bondi. And Wednesday, I'm recording this on Friday the 13th. And on Wednesday, we all saw, or maybe you didn't see what happened. And I can't even put into words what I witnessed, how absolutely cruel she was. And I had a moment where I was like, okay, I know people talk a lot about aliens or what is it called? non-player. Oh my gosh, where's Dr. Fox when I need him? I can't remember the term for it. I know you guys are, some of you are saying it over there. But like not human, like she has to be not human. Or this is a rehearsal. Like this is an actress, because surely no true warm-blooded human can display and do what she did in that courtroom. And so it really got me thinking. And then there's a creator that I follow on Instagram, Dr. Jeff. Many of you probably follow him and know who he is, but he actually made an Instagram reel about this, and he talked about shame response and how his opinion is like Pam Bondi's shame response has been trained to be different. And I commented, and I don't think that he replied, but I said, isn't someone who doesn't feel that kind of shame that normal humans do, like, isn't that person a sociopath? And I don't mean that as a joke. Like, legitimately, that's what we were trained to understand when I was trained with Brene Brown's senior faculty in 2014 in San Antonio, Texas, when they were talking about empathy and human connection and our ability to connect as humans, and the ability to see someone else's humanity. If you have that, then you will experience shame, and you can experience empathy and have compassion, because we see other people's humanity. It's part of our human psyche. And the people that don't, and again, this is what I was trained to understand, the people who don't feel empathy or shame tend to be, I'm not diagnosing anybody, but tend to be psychopaths and or sociopaths. It's just absent from the way that their brain and nervous system and body works. And again, I'm by no means an expert on this, but for me personally, that's the only way I can accept what I'm seeing. The only way I can accept that kind of cruelty from someone, especially from a woman, is accepting that they are not like the rest of us. I have to. I have to other them. And when I talk about this, I recently got called out for tribalism. And I'm just like, okay. So it's one of those things where right now in this moment, I am simply trying to explain what I'm experiencing, because I think that we might all be experiencing that, of just flabbergasted, flummoxed, and it's disorienting. It's disorienting, and that is the point. That is what they're trying to do. And by they, I mean the powerful people at the top, most of them rich and powerful men, not just here in the United States, but worldwide. That's what they're trying to do. There was a really interesting post I read from an attorney who was talking about, she called it psychological guerrilla warfare is what's happening now. And she explained the whole process that attorneys learn and how they deliver evidence in a courtroom to a jury. And it's systematic, and it is on purpose. And without getting too much into it, I will link that in the show notes too. And I sent it individually to so many of my friends. And I said, this is so important for us to understand, like, what's not just what's happening, but how it's happening. And it's meant to distract. It's meant to disorganize. It's meant to disorient us and make us so incredibly overwhelmed that we just shut down, and we then feel powerless and hopeless. And then the system can carry on. And then that's how they can just move on. And so, which brings me back to these holy emotions, specifically around, they are shame, rage, grief, and terror. And I think that most of us might be experiencing grief, rage, and terror, maybe shame as well. I know that for many of us, we are reliving and being re-traumatized if we have experiences of sexual assault. I think even of things like sexual harassment. It doesn't need to be these big traumatic events that happens. I think just growing up as a girl and then a woman in a system of patriarchy is traumatizing in and of itself. Because I'll tell you one thing. Once I started to wake up to what all of this was, it was around 2008, 2009. And then from there, as it has picked up speed, and then plant medicine has helped me make a lot of connections. On the positive side, it's so freeing and has allowed me to feel like I am coming home to myself. And one of the things that I am always walking towards is the feeling of just feeling alive. Feeling alive. I mean, that's what I saw in the halftime show with Bad Bunny. Like, that was joy. That was people feeling alive in their bodies, even in this moment in history. And so when we get to that place, when we are doing the work and we are seeing things that we can't unsee and we are integrating it all, it can force us to simultaneously feel like we are coming home to ourselves and at the same time be so grief-inducing when we see the things, the power and the systems that have been put in place to keep us down. And that's really kind of, I want to sum it up by saying that. And again, we just take one more quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to sum all this up and give you a takeaway that hopefully you can work on in your own life. Be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Close your eyes. Listen to Monday.com. Feel the sensation of an AI work platform. So flexible and intuitive, it feels like it was built just for you. Now open your eyes, go to Monday.com, start for free, and finally breathe.
All right, we're back. So how do we start to feel our feelings, especially these big ones that have been probably suppressed most of your life? I wrote about this pretty extensively in How to Stop Feeling Like Shit. I think it's chapter 3 or 4, whichever the numbing chapter is. There's, I think, like 7 different tools in there about how to feel your feelings, but I'm going to leave you with this one, and that is to make art. I know. I know. At a time like this, in this economy, make art. You can make art any way that you want to. It does not have to be the art that I choose, writing. It can be quilting, sewing, cooking. It can be really anything creative that allows you to sit with the art for as long as you can, even if you feel stuck. This is largely what happens in the group that I'm running right now in Write Your Way Through It. And that's what we're doing. We are making art, creating art from our feelings, from our human experiences. In fact, the day I'm recording this, Friday the 13th, I'm having some important women over in my life, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to make art. And if it feels frivolous, or if you're like, Andrea, really, like that's what you want me to do, I invite you to look at the resistance that you have towards it. I think a lot of times, and I've seen this in the work that I do when people ask me questions about, how do I get through this? How do I navigate this? And people typically want to be told something that is kind of a step-by-step process or something a little bit more tangible than making art. And I get it. Me too. I have loved and felt so protected living in my head all those years. And I can assure you that when we start to make art from our pain, from all of our human experiences, from our emotions, then we start connecting our mind, our head, to our body. And that embodiment is integration. That's integration. When you can move what is swirling around in your head that has also been swirling around in your nervous system, and you can try your best to make some kind of sense of it, even if at the end it still kind of doesn't make sense. At least that's what your nervous system is doing, is making sense of it. And you move it through the cells of your body and out your hands. And sometimes, perhaps if you are a singer and that's your creative outlet, you move it through your vocal cords, through your throat chakra, and out of your mouth. You are moving the energy through your bodies. Every time you get in the car or the shower or you rage scream, like I do, that is integration. That is moving the thoughts that are in your mind through and out of your body. That is closing the circle many times in terms of the integration of the feeling and the entire experience of it. And that is metabolizing and alchemizing. I use those words a lot when I'm talking about feelings, and that's what it is. And I'm having a moment over here, and I know you guys can't see me, but if you're a private client of mine, and if you take any of my programs, at least recently, you've noticed that I close my eyes a lot when I talk. And I mentioned, I think in an episode recently, that this is what I do when I have something that I need to explain or talk about that is deeply rooted, and that's how I pull it out. And the moment that I'm having is kind of it's funny to me that if I look back on my life, if someone would have told me, if someone would have taken me gently by the shoulders, my little girl shoulders when I was 7 years old, and said, you are going to grow up to not only feel and process and be demonstrative of your emotions, but you're going to teach other people how to do the same from your own experiences and from your training and education, I would have been terrified, but I would have felt like that was a miracle, because at 7 years old, I was already feeling like, what is this? What is this thing that I'm feeling? I didn't understand it. I didn't have a name for it. All I knew is that it was deeply, deeply uncomfortable, and that it was calling me. I'm going to close up. Again, I have some openings for one-on-one, and I also want to send a very special shout out to those of you who have DM'd me lately to tell me that you are enjoying the podcast, or that you like my work. Special thanks to Vita and Steph. And again, the harassment has picked up. So now when I get a DM and it's someone that I don't know, who's never DM'd me before, I have a physical reaction, and that reaction is fear. And I don't like that very much, but I open them anyway, and because that's what I have to do right now. And so even when I see a woman's profile and it's a message that it's a new message, I noticed this morning, even when I was checking messages and got, how many did I get this morning that were terrible and threatening? I think 3. Yeah. And I know it's going to even get worse for me as I speak out more and more about what we are uncovering, and I won't stop talking about it. There will be more. And so I say all that to say that I really, truly appreciate the kind messages that you send me on Instagram. I don't think I miss very often, but I absolutely positively try to reply to every single one. So thank you. Thank you for listening and for sharing this podcast with people that you think it will resonate with. And there are some changes happening this year, as I've mentioned before, all of them as I go through my own life, as Chiron has re-entered the chat. And I appreciate that you are here with me. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans, and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I would be so incredibly grateful if you haven't done so already, if you could leave a review of this podcast
on Apple Podcasts. Super easy if you already listen to your shows over there. But if you don't, or maybe you have the app on your phone, but you listen to the show on a different app, if you could leave a review for this show, it matters so much. I wish I could express how much it matters. I also wish that it didn't matter so much, but alas, it does. So if you haven't already, please go review and rate the show. It would mean so much to me. And thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing day.